talks just a minute. If I go any further, so you'll have to be prepared to hit.
Okay, I'm recording right now.
Is the lengthy statement praising President Trump for these strikes. He says, quote, "Tonight, President Trump and the U.S. acted with a lot of strength. President Trump, I thank you. The people of Israel, thank you. The forces of civilization, thank you. God bless America, God bless Israel, and God bless our unshakable alliance." Sean?
I'll come right back to you, but first, he's going to the White House. This is a Fox News alert. Here's the president.
A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. That was their specialty. We lost over 1,000 people, and hundreds of thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world have died as a direct result of their hate. In particular, so many were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani. I decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen. It will not continue. I want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. We worked as a team like perhaps no team has ever worked before. And we've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel. I want to thank the Israeli military for the wonderful job they've done. And most importantly, I want to congratulate the great American patriots who flew those magnificent machines tonight.
Amen.
And all of the United States military on an operation the likes of which the world has not seen in many, many decades. Hopefully we will no longer need their services in this capacity. I hope that's so. I also want to congratulate the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Raisin Kane, spectacular general, and all of the brilliant military minds involved in this attack. With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill. Most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes. There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight. Not even close. There has never been a military that could do what took place just a little while ago. Tomorrow, General Kane, Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth will have a press conference at 8 a.m. at the Pentagon. And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them.
Amen.
God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
President Trump at the White House with Vice President Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. The president went on in a statement, a very powerful statement, ending with him thanking God and the United States military. He praised the military of Israel, the military of the United States, said hopefully we will no longer need their services. He also said, and he had stated this many times going back to 2011, that the #1 state sponsor of terror cannot have nuclear weapons. And tonight, that threat has been removed. A spectacular success, completely totally obliterated the nuclear capability of Iran. And they worked as a team, meaning Israel and the U.S., like no other team before. And the president said, again, hopefully the military, that option will no longer be necessary. That choice will lie with whatever remaining leadership we have in Iran as of tonight. We don't know the answer to that. A lot of top military leaders have been taken out. Reports today that 3 other top Iranian Revolutionary Guard generals have been taken out. And one included one of the organizers of what happened on October 7, 2023 in Israel. President Trump just addressing the nation. We go back to Trey Yangst. He is in Israel tonight. I would expect as we head into dawn that Prime Minister Netanyahu will be addressing his nation probably in the early morning hours.
Yeah, Sean, absolutely. We're witnessing a historic moment in the Middle East right now that has a real chance to change the status quo for the region. And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has just released his first remarks following the American strikes against Iranian nuclear facilities. He says tonight President Trump and the U.S. acted with a lot of strength. President Trump, I thank you. The people of Israel, thank you. He goes on to talk about the close coordination between the Americans and the Israelis. But we just heard from President Trump there speaking at the White House, and he made clear what he has effectively done, Sean, is taken away Iran's leverage in any sort of conversations moving forward. Because remember, Iran had 2 key levers to pull. They had their ballistic missile program that has been largely decimated by Israeli strikes, and they had their nuclear program that has been largely decimated by American strikes. And tonight the region is in a new place. There is a new path forward, and President Trump is giving the Iranians yet another chance to step back from what would be more American strikes and Israeli strikes targeting what's left of IRGC leadership and what's left of the political leadership inside Iran. Now, I spoke tonight with an Israeli security source asking what the mood was like in the security echelon here in Israel. That source said everyone is just repeating, God bless America, God bless President Trump. They described this as euphoria and historic for these officials, saying there is a sense of relief. Remember, the Israelis largely considered Iran as the big war that they would face. The past 9 days have been incredibly difficult for the Israeli people as they've come under ballistic missile fire following the launch of this Israeli operation against those nuclear sites and against top nuclear scientists inside of Iran. But tonight, the region has changed. The nuclear sites have been largely destroyed, according to President Trump. There still is a minor threat of ballistic missile fire, but we understand that tonight Israel remains on high alert. They are entering into a new state of emergency, changing the home front command guidelines for the civilian population here of more than 9 million people, trying to limit public gatherings tomorrow, canceling workplaces and schools, understanding that Iran may decide to respond. But again, the latest information, Sean, that we have here tonight, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reacting to these American strikes that targeted Iranian nuclear facilities, Isfahan, Natanz, and Fordow. The places that the Iranians were enriching uranium, trying to get closer to weapons-grade material that they would then use in a nuclear bomb. President Trump announcing tonight from the White House, those sites have been destroyed, and Iran no longer has the leverage that they had just 24 hours ago going into any future conversations with the Americans or the Europeans across the world. Sean?
All right, Trey Yangst in Israel tonight. We'll get back to you. I want to go back to President Trump. He just made a statement. He addressed the nation a short time ago. The U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime, Fordow, Natanz, and he went on to describe in great detail what happened. Everybody heard those names for years, and he also did mention as Fahon, the 3rd site that was hit. Both Fahon and Natanz were hit with Tomahawk missiles from a U.S. submarine some 400 miles away. Fordow, that was the one that was buried deep inside the mountain. That was hit with not 1, not 2, but 6 bunker buster bombs. The conventional thinking leading into tonight, if tonight were to occur, was that we would only need 2. He was was able to assure the nation tonight that the strikes were a spectacular military success and that Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. And Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks would be greater and a lot easier. For 40 years, Iran has been saying, and by the way, they were saying it on Friday, death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. I went over that in the last hour. All the incidences, and I didn't even list them all, of all the Americans that have been killed because of Iranian military activity. That was their specialty, he went on. We lost over 1,000 people, and hundreds of thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world have died as a direct result of their hate. In particular, so many were killed by their General Soleimani. I decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen. It will not continue. And then he congratulated Prime Minister Netanyahu and how they worked as a team, perhaps like no other team has ever worked before. We've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel. I want to thank the Israeli military for the wonderful job they have done. Most importantly, I want to congratulate the great American patriots, those that flew those magnificent machines tonight, and all the United States military on an operation the likes of which the world has not seen in many, many decades. Hopefully, we will no longer need their services in this capacity. I hope so. And he went on to congratulate all of the people involved. And he said, this cannot continue. There will either be peace or there will be great tragedy for Iran, far greater than we have witnessed over the last 2 days. And he said, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all by far and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision and speed and skill. And most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes. There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight, not even close. There's never been a military that could do what took place a little while ago. And he went on to thank everybody and ended with thanking God. And I want to say this, we love you, God. We love our great military. Please protect them. God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel. God bless America. And with that said, we know Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, we got his first remarks as well. President Trump and I often say peace through strength. First comes strength, then comes peace. And tonight, President Trump and the United States acted with a lot of strength. And that, the first, I'm sure, of what will be another statement that we expect sometime tomorrow from the Prime Minister of Israel. Joining us now, Oklahoma Senator Mark Wayne Mullins is with us. Senator, there is no doubt we are watching history tonight. There is no doubt that I agree with the President. This is one of the most skilled, important, imperative, peacekeeping, peace through strength keeping operations in the last 40 years. And certainly the reign of terror in Iran, whether they know it or not, is coming to a quick end. They will decide their own fate. So far, they've rejected any and all opportunity for peace. We'll see what happens in the days to come. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Sean, there's a lot to unpack here, and I completely agree. Peace through strength is what President Trump has been talking about from day one. I can tell you every one of our allies in that region is extremely thankful, and those that aren't our allies in that region are extremely thankful. All of our enemies around the world are extremely fearful right now. I think you pointed out earlier, North Korea is, let me tell you, the back of the hair just stood up on their neck. You have China that's paying attention, you have Putin that's paying attention. They understand that we can deliver when we need to, and we can destroy things and targets that threaten the United States. Now, keep in mind that this regime, since 1979, has killed over 1,000 American either civilians or service members. And just since 2023, I mean, in 2023 and 2024, they attacked us multiple times underneath Biden because Biden was considered weak, all because of the Afghan disastrous withdrawal, and they continued to attack us. President Trump had to reset, and then once we got eyes on the program, and what I mean by eyes on the program, Underneath the Biden administration, they were not giving us direct information. Even in March, when they were doing the handoff, we were not getting direct information of what was actually going on in Iran. Keep in mind, the Biden administration was trying to appease them. They were trying to say, hey, nothing to look at, while they gave them billions of dollars from the taxpayers of the United States. And what President Trump did is he made this a priority, because 10 years ago, when he came down the escalators in New York, he said that there was no way Iran could ever have a nuclear weapon. And he has made that a priority in this administration. Once we got eyes on and saw how big of a threat Iran actually was, it became a point of urgency. And President Trump just put the exclamation on it and said, you're done bullying us and chanting death to America.
Let me ask you, Senator, you said in his...
I don't have my fingers cut off one at a time.
So this mission could be as successful as it was tonight. The president,
As she just said, God bless America, and God bless the military, and God bless President Donald Trump, and all that he's done. And just a very important thing here tonight, going to prayer. Let's all go to prayer together. Before we said the Lord's Prayer tonight, let's just pray and thank our President and our Vice President, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, and all of the chairmen of all the groups, and thank them for the time and the efforts that they have put in and the decisions that they have made. And thank you all of the military, from top to bottom, Air Force, Navy, Army, all of them. And because we have the greatest country in the world, because God has watched over us, and we will be obedient to God. Go to our Bibles today. Go to church tomorrow and thank God for what we have happening. And thank God for directing. Maybe these people can wake up and realize that, hey, they have a second chance now to turn themselves around and allow others to exist in freedom. And as far as the Constitution is concerned, there's nothing that the president has done in California or any other state, or with this move here, that's not presidential, and he is allowed to do under our Constitution, completely in our republic. And I say that as an advanced government teacher and history teacher in Kentucky, and as the last elected superintendent of education in Kentucky. Thank God we have Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and the team that we have there. All of them have worked hard to do what's right in the eyes of God. And we need to turn our pictures and our voices to God. Red, yellow, brown, black, and white. We're all precious in Jesus' sight. And stop this racism crap. My goodness gracious sakes alive. It was 1969 and 1970 that I taught the first Black history course in a public school in Kentucky. Racism is not the problem in this country. What's the problem in this country is the lack of believing in the Word of God by all people. We all need to turn to God. Are you ready? Are you ready? Jesus knocks on everybody's door, but we got to reach down and turn the knob and invite him into our hearts. All of us. Red, yellow, brown, black, or white. Republican, independent, or Democrat. Makes no difference. God is God, and he's in charge. And we did a godly thing tonight by doing what we did to their nuclear system and killing the fewest civilians as possible. Now they've got a chance to turn around and talk a real peace with the Israelis and everybody and all their neighbors, including us. Otherwise, they open their door for more devastation. And that's the only way that you can straighten some people out, is devastation. God bless you all, and I hope you have a great evening and a wonderful Sunday tomorrow. And just remember, I'd rather have Jesus than silver or gold. I'd rather be his than have riches untold. I'd rather have Jesus than houses or lands. I'd rather be led by his nail-pierced hands than to be the king of a vast domain are beheld in sin's dread sway. I'd rather have Jesus than anything this world affords today. Join us on Facebook under YouTube and Facebook on John Stephenson Travels with John and June Guyman Stephenson. God bless you all, and God bless our great radio station, WIOK 107.5 FM on the radio dial, Tri-State Gospel, Falmouth, Kentucky, Post Office Box 50, 41040 zip code, Gil and Jan Hammond. Great educators and great ministers of the Word of the Lord, and God bless them all. And don't forget, folks, www.begottenson.com and www.godspeaks.biz and JS7500000@gmail.com, 859-750-0000. God bless you, and lift yourselves up to Jesus today, and let him into your heart. Amen.
You know, Sean, to be perfectly honest about this, there were a handful of us who encouraged this night, who said that we need to take military action to bring about this result. It's not so much that we had to convince President Trump. He knew what to do. He instinctively knows what to do. He's a brilliant, brilliant man. But there's other people. And I was laughing because they're now believers. And they're now talking about what a fantastic night this is. I just want to caution people. The American people have always been behind this. I just want to caution people, when you listen to other people speak, they're walking a fine line, they're not sure who's right or wrong. There is a right and wrong. When you're talking about a free democracy in Israel, and you're talking about Islamist death cult that Iran was, they've killed enough Americans, they've caused enough problems. It's really not complicated at all. President Trump doesn't need to be lectured about what's to come. He's the one, Sean. I can just finish quickly. He's the one who said that if you do anything further and so forth, we're gonna deal with this. The enemy's never dead. These people never stop. This is what I try to tell people. You talk about forever wars. Good versus evil is forever.
Mark Levin, the great one. We appreciate it. We'll be watching you tomorrow. That's all the time we have left this evening. Thank God that the world is a safer place tonight. Please stay with the Fox News channel all night long for continued coverage of the incredibly successful U.S. strike against Iran's nuclear facilities. Trace Gallagher is next. Thank God. Have a great night.
Good evening, I'm Trace Gallagher. It's 11 p.m. on the East Coast, 8 o'clock here in Los Angeles, and 6 a.m. in Israel, a country that just got a huge lift from the United States in its fight against Iran, after the U.S. successfully attacked the very core of Iran's nuclear infrastructure. Welcome to a special breaking news edition of America's Late News, Fox News at Night.
Tonight I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
President Trump addressing the nation moments ago after what the president calls a historic and successful strike on 3 nuclear sites inside Iran, including Natanz, Isfahan, and Fordow. There is word tonight the U.S. used 6 of those bunker buster bombs on the Fordow site alone, and fired dozens of Tomahawk missiles at the Natanz and Isfahan sites. Now the world waits to see how Iran responds.
Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier.
Iranian television saying that any American target is legitimate, but the U.S. saying there is a plan in place to protect every American in the region. So Iranian proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis are badly compromised. Their top military leaders are dead. Their missile bases decimated. And now their nuclear sites are reportedly finished. We have live Team Fox coverage. The chief national security correspondent Jennifer Griffin is live at the Pentagon with more on how the military operation went down. The chief foreign correspondent Trey Ying's live in Tel Aviv. But we begin live at the White House and Lucas Tomlinson with more on the president's message to Americans. Lucas, good evening.
Good evening, Trace. President Trump just addressed the nation for a little over 3.5 minutes at 10 p.m. Eastern after these unprecedented American strikes against Iran, targeting those 3 nuclear facilities at Esfahan, Natanz, and Fordo. President Trump, we heard the first battle damage assessment. He says all 3 targets were completely obliterated. We have some new photos from the Situation Room which show the Vice President, CIA Director, Defense Secretary, Secretary of State, all in the Situation Room, not pictured Tulsi Gabbard. It's very notable, Trace, that when President Trump walked out to give this address to the nation after these strikes, he was flanked by his Secretary of State, Defense Secretary, and Vice President. Remember, there has been some reports of infighting in the administration, as you can see there. Instead, he clearly was showing that his team was in lockstep over these strikes, which were held under unprecedented secrecy. It was just earlier we saw that flight of B-2 stealth bombers heading west from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri early this morning. Turns out those were just decoys. The real strike package was heading east, and we heard from our own Sean Hannity that 6 bunker-busting bombs were dropped. Each of those B-2 bombers only carries 2 of them. And it's notable that President Trump normally speaks to the media at length. He ignored the press 3 times earlier today. When he landed on the South Lawn this afternoon, he went straight into the residence and to the Situation Room to watch these airstrikes in real time. And of course, over the last 10 years, President Trump, even before he was president, was very clear. He said Iran must not have a nuclear weapon. And that is what happened tonight. That was the goal, the president said, with these strikes, is to ensure that Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. And these kind of strikes have taken place before. Recall in his first term, Trace, that he launched cruise missile strikes in Syria in 2017 and 2018. And again, the biggest was when he took out Iran's most powerful general, Qasem Soleimani. And recall, there was some blowback. Iran did retaliate days later, launching over a dozen ballistic missiles at Al-Assad Air Base in Iraq, where most of the U.S. forces that are based in Iraq were. And so there's no question from U.S. officials who tell me that they are bracing for some kind of Iranian response. We'll wait and see what that response is. But President Trump warned, if Iran seeks peace, there will be peace. But if they want to do battle, he said the U.S. military is ready to strike again, Trace.
Lucas Tomlinson live for us at the White House. Lucas, we'll get back to you as any news warrants. You have a live look there at the White House. Any news that comes out of there, we will bring it to you. Meantime, let's go to the Middle East. Let's go to the Middle East and Trey Yingst, our chief foreign correspondent there, and get the latest on what's happening in Tel Aviv. Trey.
Yeah, Trace, good evening. Following these American strikes against Iranian nuclear facilities, Israel is bracing for the possibility of more Iranian retaliation. This country has seen 9 days of ballistic missile fire. So far, it has been quiet following the strikes, but there are new instructions for Israel's Home Front Command going to the civilian population here, indicating there will be no public gatherings. They had previously lifted some of these rules, allowing people to go to the beach or to go to cafes and other businesses. Other shops will be closed. The airspace over this country is set to remain closed. There were some evacuation flights supposed to take off today. They will not be happening anymore. Israel understands that Iran has it in its sights and could continue to launch more missiles into this country. Now, moving forward here, we did get some reaction tonight from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who said in a second statement, quote, "Immediately after the operation was completed, President Trump called me. It was a very warm, very moving conversation." He went on to say President Trump is leading the free world with courage. He is a tremendous friend of Israel like no other before him. I spoke with an Israeli security source tonight who indicated similar sentiment, saying people were cheering, adding that it was a euphoric and historic moment and that there is a sense of relief among the population and also the security echelon here, understanding that the Fordo facility, Isfahan and Natanz were among some of the most hardened and difficult facilities for the Israelis to strike. But given the fact they were able to clear a path forward, taking out the country's air defense systems, taking out top IRGC officials, and weakening the ballistic missile supply, this has given Israel the ability to continue to operate inside Iran, and then ultimately given the United States the ability to go after these key nuclear facilities. Trace.
What about the missiles coming in today, Trey? It seems like I heard you earlier say that they had greatly lessened.
Yeah, absolutely. The country of Israel has extensive air defense systems. They have both the Arrow 2 and 3 system. They have the David Sling. They're also using American systems out at sea and here on the ground, including the Patriot system and at least one THAAD system. And so they have the ability to not only shoot down this incoming fire, but more importantly for the Israeli people, the army has the ability to go after the launching positions inside of Iran. And according to IDF officials, around 2/3 of the people, 2/3 of the launchers have been taken out in Israeli strikes. And so it just gives you a sense of how Israel continues to control the skies over Iran. They can take care of many of these threats before they're actually launched toward Israeli cities or population centers, and then they're able to mitigate that threat. We do expect there will be more in the future, but like I said earlier, the risk is far lower than it was in many of the days before. Trace?
Yeah, Trey Yanks, we'll get back to you. Stand by. Thank you. Meantime, let's get back to this country and the Washington. The Chief National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin is live for us at the Pentagon. Jennifer.
Well, Trace, I think what's so extraordinary about tonight's strikes, not only all eyes were on Fordo, and for the past week we've been talking about the B-2 bombers and the massive ordnance penetrators. Those are the 30,000-pound GBU-57 bunker buster bombs. What we can report tonight after Sean Hannity spoke to the president, we learned that there were 6 massive ordnance penetrators dropped on Fordo, and as the president wrote on Truth Social, that Fordo site is gone. My sources tell me that those bunker buster bombs would have been dropped through the air ventilation shafts at Fordo, so most likely 3 bunker busters through each of those shafts. We had been focusing on the entrances. There are 2 entrances to the Fordo site, which is 300 feet underground. We've also reported that the MOP bomb can penetrate about 200 feet underground, but they work in pairs. The B-2 bomber, which flew out of Whiteman Air Force Base, they fly nonstop and are refueled along the way to this site at Fordo. They drop one MOP bomb, a 30,000-pound bomb that goes about 200 feet down. There's soil that is then removed, exposed, and then the second bomb, which drops into a hole that has a radius of about 25 feet. It goes into the same hole and can go even deeper. So Fordo, we understand, is gone. That is significant because that was the main nuclear enrichment site, and it was deeply fortified in that mountain. But then there are the 2 other sites. You have Natanz, which had 3 underground enrichment facilities. Those 3, we understand that 30 Tomahawk missiles were fired from U.S. submarines about 400 miles away from these sites, the sites at Isfahan and Natanz. Those U.S. submarines were most likely Ohio-class converted guided missile subs. Most likely the USS Georgia or Florida were involved in those strikes. What I'm being told, though, is that Isfahan is an even harder target than Fordo. We hadn't talked about it as much this week because all the focus was on the B-2s and the MOP bombs and Fordo. But Isfahan is where the uranium hexafluoride is, where the centrifuges are made. And my understanding is there is a tunnel into the mountain there, and it is much, much deeper than at Fordo. And so we will have to wait and see the bomb damage assessment at that site to see how whether it was completely destroyed. I'm told from very, very knowledgeable sources that that was most likely the hardest site. So we'll have to see.
I know we're still getting new information coming in here, Jennifer, but just for kind of clarification here, we have been told, or we've been kind of reporting that the B-2s went in, and they went into Fordo and may have dropped as many as 6 of the bunker busters, and there were as many as 30 Tomahawks fired at Natanz and Isfahan. And I'm wondering, do we know, have we ruled out the possibility of any bunker busters being used on Isfahan and on Natanz?
I'm told that the bunker busters were used at Fordo, and that it was the Tomahawks that targeted Natanz and Isfahan. So at this point in time, you would have had at least 3 B-2 bombers there above Fordow. Again, when we woke up this morning, all eyes were on the reports and the sightings, the radar trackers, the flight trackers who saw that there were those 6 B-2 bombers flying towards Guam. And now if you were to fly from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri all the way to Iran, let's say, that's a 30-hour straight flight. So those bombers could not possibly have been involved in this strike. That's when we look at what would have been flying east. Clearly, some B-2 bombers from Whiteman flew east, and that's why we saw this week about 30 air refuelers that were positioned in Europe and along the way and throughout the Middle East, because they would have been required to create an air refueling bridge to get those B-2s. It's a 15-hour flight if you go east from Whiteman to Fordow. And so those bombers would have flown east, and they would have been refueled along the way, and they would be on their way back home to Whiteman as we speak. Trace.
Jennifer Griffin, we'll get back to you. Jennifer, thank you. Let's bring in California Republican gubernatorial candidate Steve Hilton, host of the Aaron Cohen Show podcast, Israeli Special Ops veteran Aaron Cohen, star of Netflix Skin Decision Before and After, board certified plastic surgeon Dr. Sheila Nazarian, former Navy SEAL who trained with Israeli Defense Force soldiers in Israel, Cameron Hamilton, host of Stackelbeck Tonight, Eric Stackelbeck, Foundation for the Defense of Democracy CEO Mark Dubowitz, and retired U.S. Navy Rear Admiral and FDD Senior Fellow Mark Montgomery. Thank you all for coming on. I want to start at the table if I can first, because I want to get some reaction. Sheila Nazarian, your parents are Iranian. You talk about many times in this show how they left and the conditions they left in. You have contacts still in Iran. What is the feeling inside Iran tonight? What's the reaction?
I think that it's a mixture of hope and thankfulness to America and to Israel for what is being done. But I think there's also fear. There are bombs dropping on Iran, and I want to tell the Iranian people, we love you. We are praying for you. We are rooting for you. And this war is not against the Iranian people. This war is against this oppressive, bully regime that has been causing havoc in the Middle East for the last 46 years.
Yeah, it's amazing to me, Aaron Cohen, because you keep hearing from Iranian television, from some of the Iranian leaders, the mullahs, saying that any American target is legitimate tonight. America has they set a plan in place to keep every American in the region safe, but it sounds like it's going to go on. It's not going to end.
לא נשכוח את השפה של המזרח התיכון, של השכון. We cannot forget that language of the Middle East. Iran will strike back, but Iran needs to be careful, Trace, to regulate its flex. If Iran does anything that's beyond over-reflexing, they're going to find themselves in a situation where not only can they lose their nuclear program in about 20 minutes, but they can lose their entire regime, and Iran doesn't want to lose their regime. So I do think there's going to be a reflexive response. I think it's going to be proxies. I think it's going to be some cyber. I think there could be some potential missile launches again at Israel. However, a message has been sent. You are vulnerable, and to the people of Iran, like Sheila just spoke to, the people of Iran now see how vulnerable the mullahs are. The United States didn't wait 2 weeks. They went in there, they put a bomb, 6 bombs, right into the core of your symbolic nuclear program, Fordow, and we didn't blink, and every pilot got out safely. And so be careful, tread lightly, but just know that this can be escalated by the United States and by Israel very, very quickly. The hard work's already been done.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me like Iran's resources and assets have been greatly diminished. We're going to talk more about that. But the political perspective of this, Steve Hilton, to me, the president came out, he spoke for a little over a minute. He kind of came out, he said his piece, boom, and he was gone. You have Democrats that are already calling for impeachment, and they're saying it's illegal, so on and so forth.
That's such ridiculous.
Largely in favor of this.
Shameful.
I mean,
anybody be calling for impeachment for President Trump. My goodness gracious sakes alive. They ought to be in office.
A major political victory at this point in time for him, Steve.
Yes. There's no question about that, I think, Trace. I mean, these decisions are incredibly difficult for any leader. Just think what the president has been through, weighing up the options, only he can make the decision. And he made the decision, and he made it after giving Iran every opportunity to avoid this.
Right.
And they didn't, and he made the decision, unlike previous leaders who set red lines and then ignored them.
Right.
And what you're seeing here, I think, is exactly why so many people saw President Trump as a breath of fresh air. He is not an ideologue, never has been. He always has been a problem-solving, pragmatic leader who just wants to fix the problem, whatever it is, without recourse to ideology. He's never been jingoistic and gung-ho about this. He said he wants peace, but he's also said very clearly Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, and that is part of peace. And he's acted on that. And whatever uncertainty there may be, and there's a lot of uncertainty about what comes in the days and weeks ahead, one thing is really clear tonight, that is certain, that America now projects strength around the world, and that every regime that wants to cause trouble around the world, every dangerous regime or potential dangerous regime knows that when President Trump speaks, he means it, and he will act on it and follow through. That is a huge positive result, not just for all of us here, but for the whole world.
And it's interesting to me, Eric Stakelbeck, to bring you into the conversation here. It's interesting because you have Iranian television, you have some of the mullahs issuing statements saying every American in the region, every American for that case across the board, is a legitimate target tonight. But on the flip side of this, you have President Trump saying, listen, if they bring a fight to us, we're gonna continue the fight. But he's not talking about boots on the ground. He's not talking about regime change. He is actually doing the opposite and talking about diplomacy, saying it's time for Iran to come to the table and let's work this out diplomatically.
They got an opportunity.
Yeah, Trace, I think if the regime dares strike American bases,
God bless you all.
Trump will unleash
I'm headed
hell.
to the sack.
And I really think this is a Churchillian
Got to get some sleep. Got to get to church in the morning. Get out there and go to church in the morning. Find your place to go to. I go to Oak Ridge Baptist. You come on over there. We'll be worshiping the Lord. Randy Wallace and all the great people there. Bill Tigner and Don, the orchestra leader. Come on out to Oak Ridge Baptist Church or to any other church. There's always one on every corner in America. And God bless you all.
The guts, the courage, the boldness, the conviction to do something about it. So kudos to President Trump, Prime Minister Netanyahu. And by the way, all those reports of them not being on the same page were clearly greatly exaggerated. Israel and the U.S.